I'm very, very convinced every single leader, especially in Germany and Europe, will realize that they need to have a look on skills and need to invest in their people. Otherwise, they will lose this competition.
Welcome everyone. I am delighted to be joined today by two great patrons in the iVentiv community, Charles Jennings and Dr. Katrin Marx. Charles Jennings needs no introduction, neither in the iVentiv space or L&D, has been with us since event number 1 and a regular event chair and also chair of our advisory board. Perhaps best known as the co-founder of the 70-20-10 Institute, but with a career behind him and in front of him as well as a leading L&D thought leader. Katrin as well has been connected into the iVentiv community for several years, first as head of learning at BSH Appliances and now in role as head of corporate learning for Bosch. If you probably know Bosch, and if you don't, then you definitely do. You just don't realize it. You've probably used a Bosch appliance today or drove a Bosch part in your car in this morning. About 400,000, over 400,000 people headquartered in Stuttgart in Germany. And we're really excited that Katrin will be hosting iVentiv's first Learning Futures Stuttgart event in September that Charles will be chairing. So we wanted to bring you both together ahead of that session and more generally just to talk about, as L&D leaders and as L&D disruptors, what you're seeing in the space at the moment, what you're excited about, and what you would love to bring to the table for the conversation that we'll be having in September. So perhaps I'll just start off with a question around how would you both describe the current state of L&D? What's exciting? What's challenging? What are the opportunities? Charles, perhaps I'll come to you first for the more kind of general global lens, and then Katrin, you can add your thoughts and what that means specifically at Bosch too.
Sure, Hannah. I think that that's a very interesting question because I see L&D at the moment at the crossroads, and we're not alone. Organizations overall are trying to manage in a very difficult economic environment. When we look at the macro environment, very difficult economic landscape that's affecting everyone. Speed of change is increasing. All sorts of pressures are coming from all sorts of directions at a macroeconomic level, and that, of course, impacts what we do. So there's plenty of new challenges we're facing, but I see L&D very much at this crossroads. And over my career, which is, I'm afraid to say, quite long now, they often operated as a fulfillment service or an order taker. In other words, they take an order, they produce some content, which may be a course or a program or whatever, and they push it out, or they may produce a skills framework and then develop some content to work on that skills framework. So I think that those days are over. I think we can no longer do that because the demands for us as a profession and us as leaders of talent and learning and HR, we need to be able to demonstrate real value. And what I used to call, or what I still call, the conspiracy of convenience, I still see a lot in L&D. And the conspiracy of convenience works like this. And I've been talking about this for 25 years at least. Someone asks for training, or someone says, we've got a problem, we'd like L&D to fix this. And the learning managers, the talent managers, that's our job. We design, develop, and deliver some learning intervention. It might be a program, it might be a course, it could be also a learning path, it could be whatever. The challenge is no one does any real analysis at the front end to find out what the actual problem we're trying to solve is. It's not our problem, it's our stakeholders' problem. No one defines how we're going to measure it before we set out. So very often no one measures the impact, the value, but everyone's happy. The person who's asked for the training has got training, they're happy. The L&D leader have designed, delivered a program or whatever it is, they're happy and nothing happens. And I've seen that happen over and over and over again. And I just don't think there's any more time for that to happen. There's too many pressures. And actually, from an L&D perspective, unless we show value, unless we can demonstrate tangible value, whether it's to our organization, to our clients, to our communities, to our stakeholders, to whatever group that we're working with, unless we can actually demonstrate that value, We are seen simply as a cost center, and when times get tough, the first place to look to remove costs are cost centers rather than value creating centers. So I think there are those sort of big picture issues we have. And when we get down into it, obviously there's the impact of AI, not just on L&D, but on across everyone, across organizations, inside, outside organizations, and so on. And I think also where L&D is really struggling, and has always struggled, is that there's a lot of work done to create learning cultures, but not so much work done to create cultures of continuous improvement. And my standpoint is always that our job is to help our organizations perform better. And if we don't do our work well, our organizations won't be able to deliver whatever it is that they need to do. And we need to think at organizational level as well as individual level. So there's plenty of challenges for us to face. I could go on, for a long time, but there are lots and lots of challenges at the macro level, at the micro level in terms of process, how we do things, how we organize ourselves, what our operating models are, things like that. There's challenges and opportunities at every level.
Mm-hmm. And as challenging as they are, they also, as you mentioned there at the end, bring opportunity and a call to action to make a change and make an impact in this moment in time that we are having. Katrin, how does that show up for you, in terms of the current state of L&D, both maybe internally, but also how you see it as a practitioner at the moment?
Yeah, so actually I can fully echo what Charles just said. So it really resonates and fits to the situation we are in the business. So it's never been so demanding, but I must say I'm really positively excited because it's demanding in a way that we realize in business that through all the transformation we are in, and even in a radical decline business situation, especially in Germany and in Europe, that we realized that we need to have skilled people. So yes, but how we do it, it's quite different as we did it in the past. So I fully agree. It's no more talking about training, managing trainings, looking at training satisfaction and so on. So our currency is skills, and we need to ensure that we have the right skills. And when we face hard competition, really tough competition coming from Asia, then we realize it's as well about having skilled workers working in a cost-efficient way. We can compete with those Asian competitors. Yeah, and here I just see lots of potentials. Yeah, so yeah, we need to change a lot of things, and you say there are a lot of challenges, but as well I see it really as a great opportunity to really increase the value contribution of L&D, making sure that we have the right skills on board, that we have a learning culture here on board, and especially in Europe and in Germany, where people adapt fast. And with AI, it's again lots of potentials, lots of chances to really learn faster, to learn with better experience, like with having AI agents as a coach and whatever, to really speed up, to reduce as well a lot of costs in how we produce learning materials. So lots of great opportunities we are taking up now. So we have never been so relevant, I would say, as L&D, and it's demanding, but to me it's really a lot of fun too. And I'm looking forward to step into this new world of AI, to step into the world of effective up and reskilling in the transformation, in the restructuring we are in, rather than managing a nice training business.
I totally agree, Katrin. I think that you've touched some really important points there, and I think that one of the challenges that we have, and I think it's an opportunity as well as a challenge, is that you mentioned there's competition from the East, particularly Europe is facing that. So we really need to have a highly capable workforce, and one of the issues that I've been dealing with for a few years, and it worries me a little bit, is this whole separation between competence and expertise is the way I would express it, in that I know of no organization that wants to have a competent workforce. Of course, we all need to have people who are competent, but actually what drives organizations is expertise. And there's a huge opportunity for L&D to bridge that gap between just getting people to competent, which means like safe to work, ready to start to work, or working at that acceptable level. We need to go above that acceptable level. We need to have, what drives really great organizations is high levels of expertise, working in an environment that's supportive to that expertise, where the environment is not creating barriers, where the environment is actually facilitating that expertise to deliver. And I think at the management level as well, there's lots of opportunities to move beyond what I'd call the functional management pieces into real leadership, really effective lean management, if you want, and really effective leadership. And I quite like Henry Mintzberg. I've done a lot of work over the years with an organization in Canada that Mintzberg set up called Coaching Ourselves. And Mintzberg doesn't talk about leadership. He talks about communityship. He talks about the new leaders of organizations are actually people who manage communities, seeing the organization as communityship. And I think that's very different to the traditional view of managers sitting there and working through a spreadsheet and managing through financial lenses, to managing through people lenses, as well as obviously financial lenses, but actually extending their view beyond that financial management into the management of the community, whatever that community may be, whether it's Bosch or whether it's whatever it happens to be.
Yeah. So now we are coming really to the challenging part. Yeah. So we talked about all the opportunities, to increase value contribution of L&D with AI and so on. But if we look on, how do we really learn and adapt, especially in Germany and Europe? Yeah, we are really facing a cultural problem. We are facing a kind of wrong or missing leadership commitment to the topic of learning, and at the end, at every associate's individual level, a strong commitment to really learn and adapt and learn completely new skills. That's what we really, really lack here. And that's our really biggest challenge. We are always pretty good in offering kind of programs, whether it's skill-based with AI or not. So we do not have any problem on the offering side of learning. We have a strong issue and a big challenge on the demand side for learning, making sure that people are investing time. Maybe not that much money is always needed, but especially investing time, and it's exhausting. Yeah, it costs energy to step into the new topics, and may it be AI or whatever, so software-driven vehicle, and all the new technologies we are stepping in, and this is really, really crucial for us as Bosch. We are innovation leader in automotive and in many other areas, and to remain an innovation leader, we really, really need to have people who learn and are keen to invest time into new skills. And that's really, really challenging, especially in Europe. I would say we have a rather different learning motivation in Asia, in China, in India, and so on. And as well in Latin America, where people are much younger, for instance. But especially here for the older people, we do not have really good, attractive learning ways. Sometimes we just put them back to the students. We just say, okay, you need to relearn, so you just join again back at school. And so I met a father at Bosch whom joined then being in a software reskilling program, who joined then the young students program together with his son, and this does something with the people. And here we really need to have new attractive way, especially for older people, to learn and adapt, and there's still a way to go, I would say.
This the multi-generational workforce and also an expanded workforce across the world is one that we talk about a lot at iVentiv sessions. There's some really interesting research in, if you look at where the population centers of the world are, well, there's 1 billion over in a circle in the east. Well, how many of your top talent pipeline are from that area? You need to be looking at these signals. You need to be understanding and where that motivation is. So that will be some research we bring through.
And let me add, in the entire past of our history of like continuous growth, there were like some smaller issues with Corona and with, the financial crisis, some hiccups, I would say. But we have always been in a situation of stable growth. So everything our leaders learned and HR was doing is closing skill gaps and talent scarcity through recruiting measures. So we just recruited new skills, and somehow we always had some task for the older people. And now we are in a declining business situation, so we cannot just recruit from the market anymore. And it becomes really costly. So we really need to focus now on the older people whom we already have in the organization. So it's really a new focus we need to have here.
And this concept of reskilling, and I know, Katrin, from speaking with you over several years, an investment in skilling and interest in what this means is not new for you. Even before it was kind of more widely spread as a conversation, I know you had your own network and alliances and were really invested in that, and that's a lever that you've pulled at Bosch. And maybe you could speak a little bit more to some of the reskilling or upskilling initiatives that you've rolled out, or that you have put at the table for your organization.
So basically, it's again this, offer demand problem we are facing. So we are offering actually a lot. So there are plenty of opportunities to reskill and upskill. Yeah, we have funding programs, sponsoring of scholarships. We do have official programs for those people in restructuring areas, like extra campus initiatives with extra budget. So, but, we are really, really lacking people whom are then finally investing the time to do so. Yeah. And then, the daily business is always more important, or you just focus on, finding a new job, maybe where you just continue what you have done before. So the understanding of an I would say average engineer being in the 40s, really to reskill in software development, in AI topics, rather this mechanical engineering has been done for 30 years. Here we face too low commitment. This is a challenge. So we are offering actually a lot. We always can shine with cool programs, but to be honest, it's still not sufficient to really get that workforce transformation done.
And Charles, then if I can come to you, because I know something that you've always said and that always stuck with me is, you said, I almost wish I'd never been a chief learning officer. I wish I'd been a chief performance officer. That key word is performance. And I think that speaks to building that high performing culture that you touched on at the top of our conversation. So if just simply a reskilling initiative is not enough to truly create that high performance culture, what are the other elements that are needed to get that buy-in?
Yeah, Hannah, I think that's absolutely right. Reskilling is important, upskilling is important, but Dr. Conrad Gottfredson said something a little while ago which really resonated with me. He said, talking about AI, and he said that AI was the biggest change management challenge for L&D since the invention of radio. And I think that what we're looking at here is a change management challenge that we have for L&D. And we know that skills are important, but skills are not enough. The same way as we know that training is important, but training is never enough, because you don't do this jump or you don't make this move from competence. I can prove I'm competent. I can go through a training program. I can tick the boxes. I can complete the tests. I can be proved, competent, fit for work. But to get to the expertise level is more than training. It's often more than individuals. And I've done a lot of work over the last 2 or 3 years around teams. And I see teams as being the atomic unit in organizations, atomic unit of value, the atomic unit of productivity, because very few of us actually deliver what we need to deliver alone. We work with others. And so I think L&D needs to, if we're going to focus and take a performance mindset rather than a learning mindset, we need to think not just of individuals, not just of skills. We need to think about the 4 ways which you develop expertise, which is through rich and challenging experiences, through opportunities to practice, through building good relationships and networks, and having great conversations, and through reflective practice. All those sorts of things we need to build into the way that people work. So it needs to be much more holistic. And I wrote a discussion paper 3 years ago called Beyond the Skills Obsession, with a chap that runs a company in Australia. And we looked at lots of issues here. We looked at issues such as the work that Deming had done. W. Edwards Deming, who was essentially one of the founders or the bedrocks of agile and lean approaches. And Deming, every 10 years, looked back at his career, and at the end of his career, looked back and he asked the question about what percentage of the challenges and opportunities that I see and I come in contact with are due to what he called the system. In other words, the operation of the organization, whether there are good processes, whether people have the right tools, whether people are clear in terms of their objectives, good leadership and things like that. All of that's responsibility of leadership. And the other 10%, which was the performer, basically, he called it special. And at the end of his career, Deming came out with his very, very precise percentages. And he said, I believe that 94% of the challenges, the issues are due to the system, and 6% are due to the performer. So to my point, the point I'm making is that if we just look at the skills of the performer without thinking about the environment in which we're providing for them, and this is where AI comes in, because I think AI is actually going to provide performance augmentation and performance support on steroids. In fact, I'm already seeing it in some. I've seen it working in the Netherlands. I've seen it in various other countries where people, L&D, are using AI to support people to do their jobs better, and teams of people actually whilst they're doing their jobs. So I think that there's what this does, it opens up the palette for L&D, the palette that we can work on. Of course, we need to work on the skills. Of course, we need to work on individuals. But actually, if we step back and say, okay, we're also responsible for helping these teams to deliver what they're delivering. And how can we go about helping that? We're also responsible for making sure that people have the right information, the right tools, the right support at the right time. So that's really critical. And it comes back to me, one of the sort of bedrock bits of research, which I always come back to, was 124 years ago, 1901. A couple of sociologists called Thorndike and Woodworth in America, they came up with something called the principle of identical elements, which still holds. I mean, it's a basic principle that the environment in which you learn to do something, the more elements in it that are identical to the environment where you're going to be using that skill and capability, the better the learning is going to be. And so for me, this is a real opportunity, and particularly with not just AI, but other technologies that are emerging, will facilitate L&D to really integrate learning and working. And that's, I think, one of the key elements which are going to help L&D in L&D's toolkit to really add value to their organization. So it's really around about what I'd call empowering excellence rather than building competence. We think about, okay, how are we going to empower excellence?
You mentioned the transformation that this moment in time is bringing, and I know that's a word that resonates with you, Katrin. Perhaps you can speak a little bit to what Charles was touching on, all of these transformative elements and how they're playing out at Bosch.
Yeah, again, it's pretty easy for me to echo that and to, give you some, practical examples out of our business situations. So in the past, we just focused on communications. Yeah, in a way, we have cool programs. We have, learning is fun. You need to learn. You have to learn, whatever, with statements from the board of management and so on. We did that actually again. We created some new video material telling people how relevant is to learn and so on and so forth. And we really realized just doing that and then focusing on the skills alone is not sufficient. We really need to implement rituals, very strict rituals in the organization, where leaders and teams elaborate learning, discuss skills, assess skill gaps within the teams, look into the future of their business, and elaborate what kind of skills do I need for my future to remain successful, and what does it mean for every single one of us. Yeah, will I have the same tasks, the same job again in 5 years, especially with AI stepping into all of the jobs. Yeah, and here we really need to have some very clear routines at the end in the organization to make sure that this focus on people's capabilities is a leadership topic and is on the agenda of every single associate we have in the organization. And this is as well, yeah, a new field of, as you said, yeah, it's a new field of creativity now. Lots of opportunity for us to implement this and to make sure that learning is somehow part of everyday's business. And the good news is we do have already areas in our business like a software development unit, a big software development unit located in Bangalore, whom are already on that way. Yeah, because in the software development talent market, you need to invest really into skills. They really know that what you are doing today, you are no more doing in 1 year ahead. So there is this understanding already, and if you talk to managers of that unit, yeah, they have fully understood that they need to invest into skills, that it's part of their daily agenda. And we are trying now to use them as role models, yeah, to find out what are really good practices we can then somehow transfer to the other areas.
And Katrin, you're working in the perfect industry, really, where within Bosch, because the motor industry or the automotive industry or the transport movement industry has been changing fundamentally over the last 10 years. And, it's become a very high-tech industry in lots and lots of ways, which are nothing to do with, with building engines and so on. It's around how you manage, the IT element has just become a huge element in terms of these businesses. Yeah. So, you're right in the middle of a massive change, sort of total redirection of an industry that's been there for 100 more years.
And you need a lot of L&D to support this transformation. I'm very, very sure. Yeah, no matter how much we discuss on training, budget and stuff like that, at the end, I'm very, very convinced every single leader, especially in Germany and Europe, will realize that they need to have a look on skills and need to invest in their people. Otherwise, they will lose this competition. It's a really, really strong, fast competition. We are pushed by Asia a lot, really a lot. Yeah.
I had, to that point, I had a very interesting conversation a few years ago with the leader, the managing director of a very large bank, a large global bank. And we were talking about complexity. And he said to me, Charles, banking isn't complex. And I said, what do you mean? I've spent a lot of time working with banks, and people in banking have told me that banking is very complex. He said, no, banking is not complex. Banking is only two things. It's people and technology. We need to get the people right, and we need to get the technology right. And if we do both of that, we're okay. But if we fail in one of those areas, we fail. And actually, this particular bank came through COVID and has come through economic downturns very, very well, just focusing on making sure the technology works and making sure that they have the right people with the right capabilities to do the jobs and so on. So, and I think that you could almost transport that thought around banking into almost any other industry. It's around getting the technology right and getting the people right. And if you've got those two right, things will be okay. I mean, that's at a very, very high level. Obviously, once you get down into the weeds, it becomes a lot more complex. But as a general principle, people are vital, and the processes and the infrastructure and the technologies of all sorts are actually critical as well.
Yeah, and both depend highly so much on each other.
Yeah.
And as a tech company, to be honest, we often focus really on the technology side. Yeah, we are so keen about technologies. We have so many tech experts in the company developing cool stuff. Yeah, for instance, we have now an internal chat bot, Gen AI support called Ask Bosch. It's really, really amazing what it can do and how it can support. But, people are hardly using it. Yeah. And we need now to get this technology in use to really leverage the potential out of it. And it's all about people. Yeah. And this is what we tend as a tech company to somehow neglect and say, it's just a cool tool. People will just use it. Yeah. Still there is some change management at the end needed. Yeah
absolutely. And people, I think that in lots of cases people have been inculcated to think of learning as being something that gets done to them. I need to go to a course and have something done to me and I will learn, whereas we don't have time for that. The inherent inertia in that process, we just can't live with it. So I think that where AI has really got huge potential is to make sure that people change their mindsets from a schooling mindset to a performance mindset, and then or a learning mindset to a performance mindset, and then they can use the right tools to make sure that they can learn continuously, and so that that your internal Gen AI systems and so on can be used by people as part of their work to help them work better, and to reflect on what they're doing and to help them improve. And you get this culture of continuous improvement. I often think that when my colleagues at the 70/20 Institute, we talk about the fact that when people talk about creating a learning culture, often there's a missing word in there. What they're really thinking about, particularly senior leaders, they're thinking about is creating a formal learning culture. In other words, how can we provide more formal learning for people? And actually, that's not the answer. The answer is to actually make sure that the mindset has changed and that people are encouraged and inculcated in the idea that actually every experience that they have, every project they work on is a learning experience. And if they just take some time to, in a structured way or an unstructured way, to sit back and think, what happened? Why did it happen? What can we do better next time? You get this culture of continuous improvement.
Yeah, and maybe just to add on that, we always have, back from school, that understanding as soon I invest more time into learning, I somehow confess I'm not a good performer. Yeah, I miss something. Yeah. Therefore, I have to learn. Yeah. I do have 2 skills in school and they just hate learning. Yeah. That's, you have that. Oh, I have to learn because my grades are too low. Okay. Then I invest a little bit more time. Yeah. So it's always connected somehow negatively. Yeah. And not really, it's a cool future investment. I can be so proud. I see that in more personal topics. So many people are investing time in coaching, education, becoming yoga teachers, whatever, because it resonates with, their personal emotions and stuff like that. But not so much in really knowledge-driven topics like software-driven vehicle or stuff like that. We have that somehow negative picture on learning, and we really need to get rid of that. Yeah, I've no answers. Would be happy to elaborate with you and see what you are doing in your institute on that. Yeah, because we really need to have that mindset shift, and maybe it needs to start in school, and we need to change something in our school systems too. Yeah.
Yes, it's that deficiency model where you're thinking about filling the empty vessel. There's a deficiency, therefore we fill it. And it's interesting because certainly in the UK, when you look at the schooling system, it's interesting when you go into primary school with small children, it's very much around exploration, it's exploratory learning, it's very much around the learning.
It's fun. Primary school is fun.
Yeah, and also it's about the type of learning that we need as adults. Learning from experiences. It's around all those having rich and challenging experiences. And as you go further up through the formal education system, it becomes much more a schooling mindset where it's around content-driven, activity-light, content-driven types of and what I'd call the sort of competence model, where you come along and you can prove your competence and you get your certificate. And the greatest educational psychologist, certainly in my lifetime, Jerome Brunner, who was still teaching at the University of New York when he was 100 years old, Brunner once posed the question, what is the difference between learning physics and being a physicist? And his answer was, learning physics, you get the certificate, you've basically opened the door and passed the test. But being a physicist, and Brunner described it as being inculcated into the culture of your profession. And that's a whole different picture. And you're inculcated into the culture of your profession. You know the right people to ask the right questions. You have lots of experience that you can draw on. You know, you can look at some data maybe and say, well, that doesn't quite look right. I'm not sure why, but we can find out. We know how to find out. All those sorts of things. And that, you know, comes back to the point I've made about competence and expertise. And, you know, we're looking to build people who are physicists rather than learning physics, or are engineers rather than learning engineering, or are whatever it happens to be. And that's, I think, a really important way of thinking. And I think it's a phenomenal opportunity for L&D to step out of that mindset of just building competence and just focusing on individuals and getting people to the starting blocks to actually really supporting people to deliver value.
I recently met David Blake, who is the CEO of Degreed, one of our partners in New York, and he shared an analogy with me that stuck with me, which was to say, if someone said to you, well, what's the state of your health? And I said, well, I ran a marathon 25 years ago. They would laugh. You'd laugh at me, and you'd say, "Well, what have you done since? How are you still working on your health? That doesn't tell me anything about how good you are now." He's like, "So why, when people ask, what's your education? You say the school or the degree that you got 25 years ago, and feel like the conversation should stop there. It's a parallel there. You need to show that you are continuously investing in your learning, that you're excited to learn, all the way through." So I love that analogy, and I really do love this conversation. It makes me so excited to bring everybody together in Stuttgart. And Katrin, I know from our connection that you travel a lot to your teams elsewhere around the world, and in Latin America and India, always do a great job of platforming what it is that they're doing, those individual teams, the ownership that you give them, and those the communities that Charles mentioned, of giving that ownership to them to lead their learning. How important is your own community for you, communities such as iVentiv and alliances where you can connect with others in the field? Where is the value for you in these sorts of forums?
Okay, should I go ahead, Charles, or basically more and more important. So the more challenging the business environment is becoming, the more ambiguity is coming, the more complexity is coming into that world, and it's really, really increasing. The more we need to have networks and strong collaboration. That's actually our human strength by nature. Yeah, we can connect, we can learn from each other, and that helps us at the end through every crisis we are in. I truly believe on that, so I really invest a lot of time in building networks. Just yesterday, I've met with my skill management network at Audi in Germany and exchanged on the topic of skill management. So yeah, the more we stay together, we stay connected, the more we learn and the more we can handle challenging situations.
Charles?
Yeah, well, just hearing Katrin talk about talking that way makes me think about my time that I've spent working with iVentiv over the last however many years, 15, 16 years. And I must say that every iVentiv event that I've attended or chaired, I find a really rich veins of experience, rich veins of connections, enthusiasm, some wonderful ideas that come from left quarter, basically. We tend to get caught in our organizations and see ourselves as being special. And we have, of course, all organizations have unique challenges and issues. But when you step above those, you find that there's a lot of commonality around the challenges and issues that we have. And bringing people together and conversations are really the fundamental, as my colleague Jay Cross always said, conversations are the stem cells of learning. So bringing people together in events like iVentiv events, just to talk about what they're doing, how they're doing it, what others are doing, what others would think about what they're doing, just to get those sparks to help us go back and do things better. And again, I don't want to labor the point, but to get into this process of continuous improvement, because, you know, as you said, Hannah, you know, having a degree or a whatever degree at 25 years ago is not really relevant for what you're doing now. It may give you the basis of what you're doing now, but actually things change so rapidly that we need to, you know, keep pace with that change.
These are just the beginnings of the conversations that we're going to build on in the autumn. I'm really excited for that session. So that is iVentiv's Learning Futures Stuttgart Executive Knowledge Exchange that is taking place on Tuesday the 30th and Tuesday the 30th of September, Wednesday the 1st of October, hosted by Katrin at the Bosch Heidelhof and chaired by Charles Jennings. Thank you both for your time today, and really looking forward to morning. I hope it's got your Friday off to a good start, and yeah, have a great weekend ahead.